Hi, I'm David Cross, and I'm the second vice chair of the Georgia GOP. Today's presentation is about the Paper Ballots, Please, and Unplug Georgia movement, where we're trying to get rid of the Dominion machines in the state of Georgia and go to hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots in the precinct. So for 200 years, Americans used hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots that were counted in the precincts, and that's how our elections were done. We then turned to machines because we wanted instant results, and we thought the machines were accurate and safe as a Scantron machine at a school, or as benign as a Scantron machine at a school. Mountains of evidence suggest that we have all been duped over time. In this presentation to your election board or to your county commissioners or to your probate judge, you have to show verifiable proof that things have gone wrong and to give good, solid reasoning for why not to use the machines. So in 2020, Coffee County's voting system produced 39 new votes during the 2020 recount with no change in the ballots cast. So if you're running the same number of ballots through, you should get the same result. The voting system also failed to count 185 new ballots, and it failed to count them twice. And when I say they failed to count it twice, they ran the same stack of ballots through the machines, and the machine skipped over 185 ballots twice. When we make claims that things are inaccurate in the voting system, you must come with receipts. Here's a receipt. This is from Coffee County, given to the Secretary of State's office, and the portion that is highlighted in yellow that's a little bit difficult to read is over there in red on the side, and it says the investigation revealed we neglected to run 185 ballots. At least they thought they did, so they ran them again. When we ran these ballots, we reviewed the results, and there was no change in the vote count despite 185 ballots added. That's solid proof right there in 2020. And that's part of the reason why there are so many issues going on with Coffee County right now. In DeKalb County last year, in the primary, a Democrat primary for the District 2 commissioner showed that Michelle Long Spears, who was heavily favored to win, actually lost. Now, the Secretary of State will tell you that it was because of a programming error, because there were originally 4 people in the race. One of them dropped out. And when people were going in to vote for Michelle Long Spears, the ballot marking device was accruing those votes not for her, but to the person who dropped out of the race. Now, the story stops there because the press and the media and the Secretary of State's office will not tell you that when she demanded a recount, she contacted the Secretary of State's office, and the Secretary of State said, "Don't you dare recount those ballots." DeKalb County thought differently. They recounted the ballots, and what they found was not only did she not lose, but she won. And they also found an additional 1,805 votes that were not counted. That is a certified fact. And any of the folks that are out there that doubt that can contact the Secretary of State's office to find out for sure, or contact DeKalb County with an open records request. So the Halderman report, there's been a lot made of this recently, but Alex Halderman is a professor of computer science at the University of Michigan. He issued a 96-page report that showed that Georgia's voting machines are completely susceptible to hacking. Professor Halderman's report focused on the vulnerabilities of the Dominion voting system. We're going to cover those in a couple moments. The principal finding was that Professor Halderman wrote that the touch screens can subvert all security mechanisms. Not a few, not some, not many, but all. He also wrote that Georgia's voters should have no confidence that their votes are counted correctly. He went on to say that a single poll worker card can be used to compromise an entire county. And what he's talking about is when you go to vote and you push your voter card into the ballot marking device, it is possible to have one of those cards preloaded with malware or a virus on it, and you as a poll manager do not get to see what somebody is putting into that slot. So anybody can put anything in there. It only takes 3 seconds to read what's on a card, And once that card goes in and infects one machine, it can infect all the other ones around it. At least that's what Dr. Halderman says. The next thing is, what does Dominion say about Dominion? This is really interesting evidence. In the Dominion versus Fox News depositions, Dominion's Director of Product Strategy and Security, Eric Coomer, acknowledged in private that our shit is just riddled with bugs, he said. Indeed, Coomer had been castigating Dominion's failures for years, and in 2019, Coomer noted that our products suck. Quote, he lamented that, quote, almost all of Dominion's technological failings were due to our complete F-ups in installations. That's Dominion talking about Dominion. This slide is self-explanatory, but essentially it says that Dominion received complaints from jurisdictions in Georgia noting irregularities with machine counts that required Dominion employees to reprogram the machines. Now, these machines are supposed to work perfectly based upon the current software they have in them. You're not allowed to go in and reprogram them on the fly. When you meet with some of these election boards and commissioners, they're going to tell you that the Halderman report that we talked about a couple minutes ago, the 96-page report that said that the Dominion machines were totally hackable, some of them are going to come back and say, well, the Secretary of State said that the Mitre report, M-I-T-R-E, the Mitre report said that that Halderman was full of it, has no idea what he's talking about, and they simply refer to him as a researcher. What they don't tell you, and what's hidden in the footnotes, is that the report was paid for by Dominion for marketing materials. The report was also unsigned. So not only is it paid for by Dominion, but it's also unsigned. The follow-up to that report was that 29 leading computer scientists refuted that report that Raffensperger likes to hold up and say, hey, we did a perfect job. And these 29 experts said it's absolutely terrible. Their findings were confirmed by CISA, which issued a security advisory about the vulnerabilities in June 2022. So they're basically saying that they urge Mitre to retract this report. That's up there in the first paragraph. They go on to say that it's a ridiculous report, and Mitre's analysis isn't simply wrong, it's dangerous. The 29 people that signed off on this particular letter, as opposed to the Mitre report that had nobody's signature, are professors and professionals from MIT, Princeton, Yale, the University of California, Harvard, and Purdue. Buried in the footnotes is an admission that Mitre did not examine the Dominion system or any discernible technological methodology. And the United States government validated all of Professor Halderman's findings and recommended the vulnerabilities be patched as soon as possible. Furthermore, you're going to be told, or the elections board is going to say, well, we would love to do something, but we can't. And when they say that they can't, they're afraid that Raffensperger's office is going to hit them with fines. And what they need to know is that there's nothing in Georgia code that says that the Secretary of State can hit them with fines like what's talked about in Athens, Clarke County. And a lot of these counties are saying, we don't want to be like Athens, Clarke County, then have all these fines. But the reality is that if you put an open records request in with Athens, Clarke County, they will come back and tell you that they paid $0 to the Secretary of State's office. So in Kemp versus, in Pearson versus Kemp, the Secretary of State's office argued that they had no lawful authority over county election officials. He has no authority to fine any county. It's just simply not in Georgia law. So Raffensperger, bottom line, is not an expert. He's a civil engineer educated at the University of Western Ontario. He's not a computer science professional. So Georgia law, this is what Georgia law says, and this is what your election board should abide by. So when you meet with your elections boards, they're all going to turn to the county attorney, and the county attorney is going to regurgitate back section 21.2.300, which is before you right now. They're going to read you the first paragraph, and then they're going to say we can't do anything else. And they're going to say the equipment used for casting and counting ballots, shall be the same in each county in the state and shall be provided to each county as determined by the Secretary of State. And they just stop reading. They don't bother to look anywhere else. And unfortunately, a lot of these attorneys out there are kind of lazy. So if you look into the second paragraph down here, it says, as soon as possible, once such equipment is certified by the Secretary of State as safe and practicable for use in all federal, state, and county general primaries and general elections, as well as special primaries and special elections in the state of Georgia, shall be conducted with the use of scanning ballots marked by electronic ballot markers, that's the touch screens, and tabulated by using ballot scanners for voting at the polls and for absentee ballots cast in person, unless otherwise authorized by law, which is further into the code sections coming next. However, that such electronic ballot markers shall produce paper ballots which are marked with the elector's choices in a format readable by the elector. So what actually happens when a ballot is read by the machine? Well, here's an actual sample ballot from Fulton County. So BMD's ballot marking devices, ballots, are nothing more than receipts like the one on the right, because they do not contain the full ballot or referendum questions. Furthermore, state law says that QR code that's on there shall not be anywhere underneath the lines that say, I understand that the offer or acceptance of money or any other object, blah, 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 and so on. So underneath the words, official ballot up there, that QR code is not allowed on the ballot. So what exactly did the elector vote for on this ballot? The constitutional amendment? Yes or no? Well, what was the constitutional amendment? Constitutional amendment, question number 2. They voted yes on here, but what exactly was it? The statewide referendum, they voted no. Well, what was it? All the things that I said, what was it? Those descriptions are actually on the official pre-printed paper ballots. This is nothing more than a receipt. More Georgia Code 21.2.334, voting by paper ballot when use of voting machine is impossible or impracticable. So I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but the key words are, if for any other reason at a primary or election the use of voting machines wholly or in part is not practicable. That doesn't mean that they've been struck by lightning. It just means that they don't work for whatever reason. The superintendent may arrange to have the voting for such candidates or offices or for such questions conducted by paper ballots. The end. You can use paper ballots. So the next piece of Georgia law that we have is Code Section 21.2-365, which says that the ballot marking system shall, or the scanning devices shall, when properly operated, record correctly and accurately every vote cast. So I've already shown you that in Coffee County, that didn't happen. 185 votes were skipped over twice. Those ballots were not counted properly unless they were counted by hand. And in DeKalb County, 1,805 votes were skipped over in the District 2 Commissioner's primary in 2022, that those ballots would not have been cast unless they had been counted by hand. So the system is not accurate, and it is not counting every vote cast as required by Georgia law. Another section of Georgia Code, 21.2.279, Section C, any device that is not so approved shall be used at any primary election, and upon reexamination, a previously approved device, meaning the Dominion voting system, if it appears to no longer be safe or accurate for use by electors, that's voters, at primaries or elections as provided in this chapter because of an inability to accurately record votes, the approval of same shall immediately be revoked by the Secretary of State. So Raffensperger should have already revoked this thing and and called in like the lemon law or something like that to get rid of them, but he hasn't. And your county should do something about that if the Secretary of State will not. So, finally, in conclusion, Georgia's system is simply not accurate. The system is hackable, according to Professor Halderman and actually Professor Stark, that we didn't cover in this presentation. Counties actually believe that they're taking less risk by not counting paper ballots. I believe that using the current system is riskier and poses more risk to ballots not being counted and voters being disenfranchised by using the existing electronic system. So counties can actually take less risk by switching to paper ballots. Finally, something from the Constitution says that the people delegate power to the government. The American empire should rest on the consent of the people. The streams of national power should flow from that pure original fountain of all legitimate authority, and that's you. Thanks for watching. Unplug Georgia.